Hello, good morning and welcome back. My name is Manuel. Today I'm gonna teach you, I'm very excited actually, to teach you how to make a mascot logo, okay? So in today's tutorial, we won't just be learning how to make this, we'll be learning how to make this and how to make this as well. Not practically, basically we're gonna learn how to make this from scratch, then we're gonna transfer all those principles to make this and also make this. Okay, so the principles or rules I'm gonna teach you in this particular tutorial is gonna guide you to make any kind of mascot logo. So if you have not hit that subscribe button, I give just 30 seconds for you to do that. You're gonna learn more and more aspects of this. Click the like button also and comment, tell me how you like this, and share this to friends if it is interesting to you. Okay, so there are basic principles you need to understand in making this. There are stuff people who teach design out there don't do. I just don't know the reason why they don't do that. They don't teach you exactly what to know and how to repeat these stuffs on different concepts. They just teach you how to make a particular design, but they don't teach exactly how you can use this concept you're working on to make multiple more different concepts, which is the idea for this tutorial. Okay, now we are not just going to learn how to prepare a food logo or a drink logo. We're going to make this applicable to every other mascot you're going to create, whether it's portrait, the face, or whatever kind of mascot. You've seen most mascots I've made in the past. I don't have to put everything up in front of you here. Check up my page, you're going to find out lots of them. So we're going to understand what makes all these elements work and how they operate, so we can reuse them again and again and again. Okay, so now first thing you need to understand before making a mascot logo is there are shapes guiding all this. Okay, first let's get into fonts first. Okay, so every mascot logo have a particular font that works best for it. For instance, you see the font we use there is not the same as what we use here, and this not the same as the font we use there. Okay, this is for a food logo and this is for a moving logo. This is just a kind of logistic company that move people's property from one house to the other, and this is for a drink logo, drink, milkshake, stuff like that, and you understand the point. Now each design, like I said before, have a kind of concept for font they are going to use. Okay, as you can see, this food design, it have a curved edge, and this still a food design, but it doesn't have a curved edge all through from all these fonts. Okay, this need a stylish design. Why? Because the concept of the shape in the background requires that. Now look at the concept of the shape we have here. Is rounded, and that's why the points should be rounded too, because it works in line with what we have. See, the splash of liquids out there have kind of curved edges, though we also have some splash of liquid elements here, but also you understand the point. So the font is very important, that you choose a right font for your mascot. That's what's going to make your mascot look cool or not. Now we go to the second point, which is element family grouping. Okay, now if you watch this design, there are elements and there are groupings to it. For instance, we have here, you see all these are grouped in one. Okay, all these are grouped in one. I think all these fonts are grouped in one. You see how everything is working out? All these are grouped in one, all these are grouped in one. Okay, so you see all the scattered stuffs there are grouped in a way that it can be easily, assembled or moved around or rearranged the way we want. Why you group elements in mascot design is that it gets a little bit more cranky or complicated when you try to move little bit elements around. For instance, we want to move this element here out of this, or the shape behind this particular element, this A. There are double A here that makes up this concept. When we start designing, you understand how this concept works. So now I drag this out and you see that there is another A at the background. Look at this A, and this is second A. Now this second A that houses the stroke, as you can see, and there are other elements inside of this. These elements are the element that makes up the shadow, that makes them look like the shadows are real from here. But in real life, the shadows, those element shadows are white in color and they are open in space in this font. I'm going to talk about that in a little while too. So you take note of that font grouping, very important. Whenever you are we're using the selection tool, very important. We can move around our elements. When we move around our elements, it won't be stressful for us to pull things around very easily. Fine. So the next is color grades. You need to understand the color that works in a specific area. That you use a particular color. What I didn't say about font is, as you can see, we used a different font for the top and a different font for the bottom part of this name. I will talk about that when we go to font choice and choice making. So now, like I was saying, in color grade, you need to understand what kind of color works in what elements. And these elements are not real life elements. These stuffs are vector elements. Like for instance, we can pull this out separately, we can pull them out one after the other. These elements are different elements that makes up one. Okay, so now these elements deserve their different colors to give them their different concept. Now, as you can see from this angle, you see the flower at the back part is too dark, and the ones outside it are light. Why? Because the one at the back is assumed to have a shadow covering it, which these two above are creating. Okay, so that's just the concept of that, and that is why shadowing in colors are very important in mascot design. As you can see here, we can also find another shadow here. So shapes also are very important. We should understand what shapes works in what angle, and what shapes, how we're going to move things around. Like you see, the font is curved in a way that it looks kind of curvy, like the same thing we have here. The font also curved in a way that it looks a little bit curvy. Like I was talking about shapes, you can see that these elements have their diverse shapes that makes them up like this. If you pull this out, if you start pulling out the shapes that makes up a mascot design, it start not being a mascot design. Okay, so what's important in a mascot design is the shapes that makes those elements up. Okay, all these shapes sum up to make up all this work. Okay, all these shapes sum up. All the shapes, they are very important, they are very necessary to make up your design. The same as this, as you can see, the fish here, the shape at this age is what makes that part. The shape here makes that part. The shape here makes that part, and the shape here makes this part. And as you keep dragging in, you keep finding out more and more stuff that makes up this fish that I sketched. And you're gonna find out that this is very simple to do if you understand. It's not just drawing. Now the question could be, is it possible to be a good mascot logo designer without knowing how to sketch? In one way it's true, in one way it is not. Okay, now when I started mascot designing, I didn't start as a cool artist. I didn't know how to make stuff work with my pencils and stuff like that, but I have to start with the simple elements. Okay, like that is the basics of this tutorial. I would have gone into this, but it would be a tutorial that could take us multiple hours for us to make up. So that's why we have to start from the scratch, start from the basic stuff that we know we can understand, we know that beginners can build, and with that we can skyrocket to getting into basic shapes and then advanced shapes to understand how all these elements come together to work in line to make up all these shapes. Okay, so that's fine. So that's for shapes. Now we also have to deal with contrasts. Contrast is now you understanding what color you apply here that is not going to conflict with another color next to it. For instance, we have a red color of text here. So now if we have removed this background and placed this text above here, you see there is a bad contrast between these texts. Let me zoom closely so you see. Between this text and the background we have here. Okay, and that is why we have this and this above it. Okay, so now this is making it easy for us to read the text, and that is the contrast I'm talking about. Okay, so now the contrast is now being a stroke or leading us to the next, which is stroking, which is being the strokes that is guiding this element from conflicting with the background. Also, for instance, we pull out this and we remove this particular one, remove this one that is guiding this background, and we pull this back. Look what happens. The and is becoming a little bit unkept and is being illegible for people to see exactly what's going on there. Okay, so these are basic principles you need to understand how this work, and we are going to put them into practice. Okay, we're going to put all this into practice to know exactly what happened and how we can achieve that in a little while. So guys, are you ready? If you're enjoying this, click on the subscribe button, like this, please like this video. That way you encourage me, to keep making this tutorial. And for those who are downloading tutorials, I'm warning, please don't download tutorials. If you don't see enough watch hours in tutorials, it discourages me to create stuff. I'm doing this for free, and I'm doing this in the best way that I can. I'm not hiding any secrets from you. I'm trying to build you so it will be easier for you to scale through in this industry. So try to help me so I can help you too. When I see subscribers, I see likes, comments, and so on, it encourages me to do more. So I'm waiting for all those hits. Smash that button, smash the like button, smash the subscribe button. Keep encouraging me, and we keep going. So now what we're going to do is to understand what elements we are going to use in this particular tutorial. Okay, so now zooming back so we can see all elements that are involved. So this is the water splash at the back of all these elements before the circle. This is the strawberry, I think. Okay, this is strawberry, and this is the I don't know what fruit this is. This look like I don't know. So this is the cupcake, and this is a kind of bread or chips, and this is a kind of strawberry. I don't know what this is. I don't know what kind of fruit this is, and this is a leaf, which is very necessary for us to build. And now this is our color palettes. The color palettes are stuffs we are going to use to create. These are all colors that are involved in this creation. These are all colors. Now this is very simple. We are going to take this very, very simple in a simple format. You're going to understand this, you're going to do this, you're going to create this. It's going to work for you. Okay, I am very happy to be the one guiding you on this, and guiding you the best way I can. Okay, so we're gonna delete this. Okay, before we do that, let's think about the fonts we are gonna use. Okay, so now we're gonna start off by selecting the kind of font we are gonna use. First off, we can select this particular one. Let's give this font name of Jelly. I like that font. Is the font we actually used for this. Okay, so we select Jelly for this, and the second one we are going to use Blobby. The kind of font you choose is very, very important. Okay, the third one we are going to use cute Jelly fish. Fine. The fourth one we are going to use Bubble. Fine. So as you can see, we have the fonts we needed, and the next thing is to understand whether we are going to use capital letter for our design or small letters. But I go with the first initial being capital and the rest of them being small letters. So now judging from what we are seeing here, we now have to decide what kind of font is going to work. All these fonts are from the same font family. Now we select which fonts are going to work. I selected the first for the first initial or first text, the first name, and the second for this particular one. Okay, a minute. Fine, so we have a little more time. So now what we're going to do next is to make the priority, the main font, become what we want, and the next will become the bottom text we are using here. So for the first font, we're going to choose to use this, and we increase the size a little to give us the perspective on understanding of exactly what we are doing. For the next, we are using this, and that is fine for me. So that's number one step. With that being understood, we can now delete these two, and we go with just this, and we're done selecting our fonts. So now we can delete all the design and start from scratch. So we're about beginning. Grab your popcorn and little drinks so we can kick this up at once. So fine, let's do this. We are going to start from creating a background, which is the end part of the element we have. I wonder why I deleted that, but I wish I didn't. So the background, which is the circle, is the background. That's the end part of what we want. Whenever you're making a mascot logo, make sure you start off with the background of that design. Every mascot have a background, and what makes it a mascot is the shapes, not just the shapes, the strokes. Among all things, the stroke, the shadows are very important to create a mascot. If any mascot doesn't have a shadow, it doesn't make any sense. Why mascot designs are a little bit complicated is because each element with them have multiple more elements inside of it. So for instance, just this water drop could have about 20 to 30 splitted elements that makes up that elements, okay, that component. So the component is very easy to understand, but the elements behind it is what you need time to arrange so it works fine the way you want. And after you're done with that, select everything and group it. Fine. So first off, we are going to create the background we are going to use. Let's just do that very quickly. Select on the rectangular tool over here, right click on it and click on the ellipse tool. Now draw the background we're gonna use. Let's draw the background and make sure we're in perfect shape. Fine. So that is it for the background. So now what next we need to do is, let me zoom a little bit closer. Fine. So what next we need to do is to give this background a particular color, okay? The background should have a color which we have in mind of creating this. So we select on the background and we select on the eyedropper tool and we give it a background. What background I'm going to give it? Look at the gradient color I created for it. I'm going to send out this gradient color in case you guys will be needing it. So make sure to check on the link in the description below if you want to work on a kind of project like this as the assignment. So now we select on this color and that is it. We created the background color we wanted. Now the next thing to do is to pull this color to the kind of angle we want the light to come down from. So you have the shadow dark from the left and we have the bright light from the right. What we're going to do now is to select on the gradient tool and select on the top element, top level color element, not the stroke, the top level element, which is over here. Fine. So now we stroke from the top to the bottom. Okay. So we see if you stroke from the top to the bottom, the dark side flips over to the top and the light side goes to the bottom, and you stroke from here. You're not going to break anything, okay? Just try out things. Don't be afraid to break anything. Just try out things. It's going to work for you. So now we have that. We can expand it a little more. We want the light side to be less and the dark side to be more. So we expand it a little more. So this dot here is showing that this is the part the light side starts and this is the part the dark side starts. So next we are going to add a stroke around that. A stroke of brown will make much sense. So this is the brown color we are supposed to choose, but since it's a stroke, we might find difficult selecting a color, so we can just select that from here. So fine, we've selected a stroke, but you won't see it clearly. You can head over to the stroke panel and increase the size of the stroke until we are satisfied with what size of stroke we want, and we can let it go. Fine. So that's the first stage, creating the background of what you want. Okay. So the next stage is for us to start adding elements. Now, in background, we have what they call primary and the secondary backgrounds, okay, in most mascot designs. So the primary design is what we have here, and the secondary is what is going to give a kind of shadow to this background. So to do that, we duplicate this and reduce the size a little, like so. This is fine. Then we drag it to make sure it is in the middle, and we are going to remove the color inside of this. As you can see, it's giving a conflict between those two. So we select this color, head over to our color part here and remove it from here. Fine. That's just cool. Then the stroke around, we are going to make it a yellow color because we want most part of this to make much sense, to look very realistic to us and to our clients. So I think that color is okay. Let's work on it a little. I want it to be a little bit brighter than that. Fine. So we are good with that. So we have the first layer and second layer. What we need to do here is to group. Very important. I talked about this before now. So select all of it and click on Ctrl and G. That's how to group. Ctrl G is to group, or you click Option and you can group from here. Now we can ungroup. Now we can click Option and we can group. Okay, fine. If you want to use shortcuts, select all and Control and G. That's it. So that is it for us selecting the background we want. Now we start adding the elements we want one after the other. So the first element I'll suggest we create is the text. Okay, which is very important. We create the text, and before we start adding all other elements we want. This is going to be very quick, and I'm going to point you to, at the end, I'm going to point you to a resources where you can get most of these elements, illustration elements very easily, so you don't waste much time creating this. But I'm going to show you how we created all these elements. These are very simple to do. Why I am going to show you how to create them, not just give you the resources, is if I show you how to do it, even if you get the resources, you want to make a modification to it, it will now be easier for you to do. All those resources are not copyright infringed. Those resources are stock resources and they're free of charge. Okay, so now let's get into the next. We have grouped this already, so let's get into the next by creating our text. So we have our first and second text over here. So we select the both of them, bring them to the front, click option and arrange, bring to the front. Why we bring to the front is this. If we try to move this over here, it will be at the back of this text. So clicking option and arrange and bring it to the front makes it stay at the front of everything. So like we said, we are learning this to the best way so you understand how these things work and not just to build stuff yourself. So now we have created that. What next we need to do is to style our fonts. In the last tutorial, I taught you guys how to style the fonts for your mascot design, for your wordmark designs, and we're going to apply the same principles in this particular one. Okay, so now we drag out this. We're going to style this one after the other. We're not going to do both of them together because the two colors are totally different. So before we start styling, we will first need to flatten this text. We need to convert this text to become a shape instead of a text. How do we do that? Select it, go to object above here and click on expand appearance. Simple, and that is it. Objects, expand. Okay, fine, we have expanded the appearance. So you click on object, expand appearance, click on object again, expand only, and you are done. Let's try that again in this one. Click on object, we go to expand appearance, we click on object again, we go to expand this time. Object, go to expand this time, and boom. Click, allow this as they are, just click on OK, and that is it. So we've expanded our two texts, which is first step. Now what you need to do is to start styling our texts. This is gonna be a little bit simple than you think. It's gonna be a little bit very simple and sweet. Okay, so now to create a shadow at the back of our element and a kind of not actually a shadow anyway, a kind of a stroke that will differentiate this from this particular background. We don't need to create that stroke from this particular text. I will tell you the reason why we don't need to do that. Okay, now let's continue first before we get to that. So now first what we need to do is to, since we have added this, we can now ungroup these elements. Why we ungroup is so you can separately manage them. So we can separately manage them like this, like selecting this one separately, selecting this one separately, or let's not even ungroup. Let's not ungroup. Don't stress yourself. I don't want this to be a little bit difficult for you. Okay, let's not ungroup. Let's use the direct selection tool to rearrange this the way we want. Okay, so now first off, what we're gonna do is to drag all of this into the shape where we are building. Okay, so now drag it to the shape and increase the size till we are satisfied with the shape. Remember, a mascot logo, your shapes should always be, the name should always pop out of the background. Name should always pop out of the background if they are not outside the background already. Okay, so that is it. So we have this shape here. Now what next we're going to do is to rearrange them the way we want them to be. We want them to be a kind of curvy. So to do that, select on the direct selection tool, click outside. Now raise this up. Okay, let's rotate all of them so we can get the shape we want. Rotate all of them a little like this. Fine. So now, okay, that's too much. Let's rotate it a little more down. Okay, fine. So now we have it rotated the way we want. Next thing, we select on direct selection tool, click out, and we start rearranging our text now. So first we draw this up a little, next we draw this up a little, next we draw this up a little, next we draw this up a little. Now this is not going to go up, this is now starting to go down because this is the ending part of it. Now we need a little more space on this. Okay, we don't even need any space on this. Okay, we don't need a space on this. Just make sure this edge curves a little. Now to get exactly what shape you want on the edges, you can select the circle and draw a kind of line like this. Okay, and rotate it with the same aspect you rotated the first one and point it to the under the element. We can reduce this a little more and point it under the element. So with this guide, we can now know which element or which text is not going to the shape it wants. So we raise this a little more, raise this a little more, and we have the same shapes style we want. And that is how to get that shape. So now we can delete this and we have exactly what we are looking at. Fine. So let's bring this E closer to K and S closer to E, and that is fine. So we have the basic shapes as we have created. So the next thing we need to do now is to start adding styles to this. Let's add styles to this. Now what we're going to do is to select on all elements, and let's add a color grade to this. Select the eyedropper tool. What color grade did we use on this? We use this red with a little bit of gradients. Fine. So as you can see, we can't find the red anymore, and that's where the problem starts posing. Now what we need to do here is this. Okay, there are several things we need to do here to get the styling. Let's pull this out so we can style it from the outside, then later we pull it back into the place it's supposed to be. So we pull this out here. See how beautiful it looks, and it looks as though it is a kind of bubble and those kind of effects. So now we are going to create elements out of this. For instance, let me show you what I'm talking about. The empty spaces we are seeing in these letters are not actually empty spaces. They are not going to create the effect we want. We want to control those spaces to give them the particular color as we want. Okay, now before we get to that, we have to duplicate this. Okay, we have double here. Now move this one you duplicated above it again, above this particular one we created. Now since we have duplicated it, this is grouped and the other one is grouped, we can go to the structure panel around here and we can see the one we just duplicated. This is the one we duplicated. Fine. And we see the next one, which is the one we duplicated just a moment ago. So this is the one we duplicated previously, and this is the current one above it. So we select the one we duplicated previously and we add a stroke above it. So the stroke color we are going to add is white. You see, as we're adding stroke, you see the effect is given. So that is fine, that is okay. So we add that stroke and we are going to make this stroke white color. Okay, now remember we are doing this in the element at the back. We duplicated this text and added the other one at the back. So select this and make the stroke white. Fine. So now to understand what we are doing, we select the both of them. Let's select the both of them and move them up. You're going to see the effect this is now creating, and this is exactly what we want. Fine. So now we pull it back again. Let's continue styling this our elements. Now the next thing we need to do is to select the element above, and we need to create these shapes so we can move them out separately. For instance, we can move these shapes separately. These shapes are not shapes yet. Okay, you see, we can't move anything out there. So to make them shapes, what we need to do, select on the element we want to make the shape. Use the selection tool, select all the elements that you grouped on that. Go to select your shape builder tool, select it. Then here the color, we want to change this color to white because we want the color it will apply to be white in color. So you can now hover over it and click on the element. Let's change this color to white. Okay, before doing that, let's just click outside the element and change the color we have here to white first off. Okay, now select everything again. Now go to the shape builder tool. Okay, now the color, we can now paste all the colors at these edges. All these points, as you select the shape builder tool, don't hold the alt key like we did in the previous one. Holding the alt key will delete these elements, which is not what we want. So what we want is to create a shape inside of these spaces that we just created. So we just, without holding any key, we click on it, we click on this part, we click on this part, just keep clicking on all of them. Fine. So just keep clicking inside of those parts. Fine. Why we're doing this is because we want to have a granular control of these elements. We want to control them ourselves. So what we're going to do is select the element which we have already. Hold the shift key and select all the elements which we have already created by just using the shape builder tool and dropping it inside of them. Just select all of them and change the color to a color that will match with the red. Now we are not going to change this color to white. Okay, watch me. We're not going to change this color to white because it's useless to make it white. It's too the effect is too much on the face. So we are going to make this color the way we want. We are going to make it to look close to the color of the background. Now whenever you're creating a color above another color in a mascot, especially when it have to do with text, make sure the color above it is a lighter version and an accent version of that particular color. What do I mean? So for instance, we have red here. What we're going to choose is a lighter version of red. For instance, something like this. You see what I'm doing? Good. We pop it in and that is it. That is just it. And this is just how we created that shadow to make it look from afar. It looks as if it's a kind of bubble, and that's the effect we want. So perfect. Now we are done with the font. We are still going to do the same with the font beneath. Okay, the bytes, we are going to do that with it too. Let's try and see what's happening here. So we can further rotate this a little more. Fine. Okay, we lost our other elements, so we are going to select everything. Make sure you select the both of them. We didn't add the other one. Select the both of them, rotate a little, and that is it. Now the one at the back part, we want to do something there. Let's increase the stroke. We select on it again and go to stroke, and we increase it by 7 pixels is okay, and that is it. So now as you can see, we are not having the same white color as what we have here. For instance, we select on this and delete, automatically it becomes white. Okay, so that color makes it look unique while having the shadows at the back and everything working fine. So to help yourself make things easier, you can select on the two elements, the one at the top and the one at the bottom, and group them again. If you group element, the elements grouped inside it can also be grouped as they are. For instance, as we group these two elements, let's go closely here. You see, we have the two elements grouped, the first one which houses everything and the second one which houses the second element. So you can group stuff like that and still walk around your stuffs without being compromising anything. So now let's get into building the bytes. Very important. So now to create the bytes, this is just getting too funny for me how we're making this and how simple this is. Okay, so to create the bytes, we are going to use a yellow color. Let's apply the color first. What color did we use? Let's try this color. I think this, okay, fine. This is the color I used, and this is very fine. And now you see it's creating the effect already. It's creating the effects we need already. And all we need to do is still the same thing we did in the initial, duplicating these elements, fine. And in the one beneath, we are going to add a shadow beneath it. But before we do that, before we duplicate, let's reduce the size of and, because it's looking as though the and is actually the first letter of this. So we reduce the size a little to make it not look very seriously. And we can also do a little bit of touch like what we did in the other one, like increasing, pushing this one up a little, pushing this one up a little, pushing this one up a little, this up a little, and this up a little. Okay, fine. So now we have and here, and other ones are up a little. Fine. So let's try that and see if that works fine for us. So we rotate it a little and see if that works. Increase the size. I think this is fine. This is fine. This is okay. Okay, this is fine. Fine. So now we have it. Let's duplicate Okay, it's only when you have finished styling that you can duplicate, else the one you duplicate at the back side will be difficult for you to rearrange when you start rearranging the one at the front. So make sure everything is fine before you duplicate. So we duplicate this one at the front. The one at the back, we have to add a stroke. A stroke color of brown also is very important. Fine. We have a stroke background of brown. We select on this and increase the stroke color. Okay, now we are having a problem here. Let me increase it the more so you see the problem we are having. See these pointed edges? We don't want them. How to remove them? Click on the option here, show more options. Now you see this particular point. This edge is for strokes edges if you want them to be rounded, and this is the align stroke outline. When you click on this does the magic for you. Okay, fine, this is exactly what we want. But this particular one, like I talked about, is when you're dealing with strokes, only strokes, not strokes that have background or strokes that have fills on them. So now we are done with that. Let's move our other text above it and see if it works fine for us. So move and make sure it stays exactly in the same point. Fine. So as you can see, the stroke is too much for here. What we're going to do is to reduce it a little. We don't want it to be too busy. We want it to be as minimalistic as possible. So select on it, select on the stroke, reduce it by, let me say 5 or 4. Okay, 3 is okay for me, and that is fine. So now we select on the two of them, also group these two. We have grouped them and we move them up again. And let's rotate a little, push it up a little, expand or extend this a little. What else can we do to this to make it look very, very sweet and nice? Push it up a little, down a little. Fine. Just have to tweak around things, okay? So now we have done that. As you can see, the edges or the shapes we have here are not white in color because we didn't apply that. We forgot to apply that in the initial. So what we do is what? To select that particular element and fill the color. Okay, we can select the both. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It can affect the one at the back. The stroke doesn't matter. Just select the both of them and we can use our tool. What is it called again? Can use our shape builder tool and fill in those colors. So we fill in these parts. Okay, we're not going to do it for the one at the back. Let's just select the elements. Select just the front element. This is the front element. To select an element from the control panel, select on this part. Okay, that's where we select an element. So we've selected on that, then we can use our shape builder tool and fill in the colors one after the other. So I hope this is not difficult to do. This is very simple to do. This is very simple understanding, a simple procedure to follow, and you find yourself making wonderful works in a little time. So fine. We have gotten what we wanted. Now what we need to do is to select them one after the other and change their colors. Okay, so we select this, hold the shift key, select this, the same as we did in the initial one. Select this, select this, select this. Remember, I'm holding the shift key. Select this, select this, select this, select this, select this, select this. Select this, select this. Now understand the color we are going to use is going to be close to yellow too. Okay, so we select on our color which we want to use or want to apply, select on yellow and go to the lighter version of this color. So the lighter version of yellow, we do wonderful work. Let's go a little more lighter, and that is it. Boom. Let's see if this works fine. I like that. That's really nice. We use the gradient of yellow to make that work, but you can just as you apply the yellow, let me take for instance, we apply yellow here, come down a little. Okay, as we apply the yellow, you can further select on a particular yellow color to apply just the yellow you want. Okay, or you can use the gradient if you want, but I like this. I think this is okay for me. So we've created the first and the second styling in this design. The next thing we need to do, I'm not very satisfied with the styling we gave, the color we gave to this. So we are going to work on that. Select on this. Sorry about that. I'm not very comfortable about it, so I need to make the changes. I like perfection, so you should also achieve that. You can also like perfection and you can also achieve wonderful works. So whenever you're not comfortable with what you did, go back and redo it. It's not that you have done it and then you are done with that, you're a professional. No, that doesn't make any sense. Okay, so now we select on a darker red, okay, to see how that works. That's perfect for me. Cool, at least now that looks a little bit lighter for me. That's cool. So we've created the first layer and the second layer of shape we want. And the next thing we need to do is to start adding up our elements one after the other. So before we start adding up our elements, I need to teach you how these elements were made. Okay, so for instance, let's go with this. Let's drag this out. Let's single-handedly drag this out and let's recreate it. Okay, let's recreate this. So to recreate this, we need to draw a circle here. Okay, fine. Now give it this color, the same color as we have here, and that is it, number one step. Number two step, we are going to select and create a star shape. Okay, this star shape. And when we create the star shape, we have pointed edges. To remove these pointed edges, to make them curved as this, select on it and select the direct selection tool. Fine, it gives us these shapes here. So what we need to do is to curve the edges till we get exactly what shape we want. And this is okay for me. We select on the eyedropper tool and pick the color also. And we pull this in, but this time around, we pull it at this edge. Fine. And we can increase it a little more to match exactly what we have here. Next, you can duplicate this color, this background we have, this element we have here, and reduce the size a little. Click option, arrange, bring to the front, and that is it. Sorry, I'm being too fast, guys. We select the color again. We are running out of time. I don't want this to take much of our time. So we've created that automatically. So we select this, and we can rotate it now to face up, and we increase the size a little, rotate it a little more, and that's okay. So you can further add gradients to this to make it look more realistic. To add a gradient, select on this element, select on this part, and select on this, select on the eyedropper tool, pick the color, select on the other eyedropper tool, and pick the color from this other edge. Now, this particular color we picked here, we are going to walk around with it. Click on this edge and increase the thickness. Okay? Increase the thickness. So with that, we are having a kind of shadow in the fruit, and is a little bit more different from what we have from here. So it's being a little more realistic from this age than what it is. Later, we're going to learn advanced styling for elements or icons in the future tutorial we'll be having on basic mascot principles. So, but with this, you understand what we just did. You can do the same with the flowers. To create the flowers, I have tutorials on how to create this. To create this is just the shape. To create this also, okay, these are all elements on their own. See, this pulling this out is an element on its own. This is the shadow. The shadow is an element on its own. This fruit is an element on its own. Okay, this is an element on its own, an element, and this shadow here is an element. Okay, so this is how we created this. All these other ones here, this is an element, and these ones, one after the other, are elements on their own. All of them. Okay, so we go back. Fine. So that's how all those stuffs are created. The water drop or splash is still the same thing. I am going to make separate tutorials on how to create all these elements one after the other. So if I'm doing that here, this is going to take us about 2 hours or so. But the essence of this is to show you how to make basic stuffs out. I'm going to show you resources on how to get elements like this, on how to make it faster for you. But that doesn't mean you don't learn how to make this. Okay, sometimes you will need to do some modifications yourself, and to make all those modifications, you need to understand how these elements work and why they work the way they work. Okay, so that's why I have to separate all these things one after the other, so you can see exactly how these things functions or how they are being created. So first and foremost, we have to start adding our element. Now, if we select this, just watch closely. If we select this and drop it, select this and drop it, select this and drop it, everything is going to the back of the element. Now, this is the part we start understanding which element should come first, which element should be at the back. Now, mascot design, also important to note. Mascot design is all about levels, okay? Levels of layers on layers and layers on layers on layers, and so on and so forth. So you need to understand, okay, this layer is above this layer should be above this layer should be above this layer, even in grouped elements. For instance, we have this grouped element over here. So even in this group element, we have elements that are above each other. For instance, the fruit element is above the eyes element. So the shadow element is also above the eyes element. The fruit element is above everything. Okay, so these things are what you need to understand, which works and how it works. For instance, this snack here, you see this is a shadow. It is not actually a color, it's a shadow, and this element here and this element above. So which means this element, which is yellow, is above everything. Okay, followed by this particular shadow element, which is what following this, and then the last element, and which is how that element was created. Okay, so now with that being understood, let's get in and start dropping our elements one after the other. Okay, so now first we have to drop our splash, I call it the drink splash. Okay, the drink splash, we're gonna drop it. Let's drop that in. Okay, now it's at the back of the all element. To bring it to the front, click option, right click on your keyboard and click transform. Click arrange, bring to the front, and that is it. Okay, now you can increase the size to whatever size you want. Now remember, these elements are rotated. You can't decide by the shape of the circle, but you can decide by the shape of the text. So you also rotate that according to the shape of that element. Okay, now we rotate it. What next we need to do? We need to put it at the back of all these texts, but not at the back of everything here. So to do that easily, go to the control panel, locate your file. This is your file over here. So we're going to draw it. I'll drag it down until it gets to the beneath the text. You see, drop it there. Okay, so since it's here, it's now beneath this text. So fine. So now we have it beneath the text. What we need to do is to drag it down a little, and we have gotten the first element styling. Okay, now the next thing, or the next element we are going to drop in is what we're going to drop in now. Let's drop in the cupcake. Very important. So we drop in the cupcake here. It's still going to be at the back. Click option and arrange and bring to the front. In most cases it will be in the front. Wherever it is, just make sure it's in the right place. So rotate a little and place it in there. Increase the size. Fine, because this is almost more of the elements here. Increase the size, and we're going to place it above the water, but beneath this text. Okay, so we do the same thing we did before. We select the element and find where the water is. This is the water here, and place it beneath the text in the middle of them. So fine, you can further select this and rename. You can call it water. Okay, you can call this one cupcake. So that makes your work look easier and simpler for you to trace from this angle, because we'll be working with the control panel whenever you are doing the mascot. It's a must. You must work with the control panel. So after that, what next are we going to drop in? We're going to drop in the snack. So dragging the snack in, also bring it to the front. And the size, I think, is too much. Let's reduce it a little. Fine. Very good. So we are going to move it at the back of this element 2. So do the same, drag it in at the back of that element, and that is it. Pull it up a little. The next, we are going to drop in the strawberry. Drop it in here, this angle, reduce it a little, bring to the front, arrange. Sorry. So fine, we are going to put it at the back of that snack. So drag it until it gets to the back of the snack, and you leave it there. Fine. So it's grouped with the snack, which is not what we want. So let's pull it out from that group and place it where it's supposed to be. Fine. So we have that element there. Now we drop our next element, which is this element at the edge here. So we have how many elements left? We have this element. Let's draw it together here. We have this element and we have these elements. So now, before we drop in this element, let's drop them one after the other and see how they are going to work for us. Now, select all of them. Okay, select all of them, and we are going to move all of them to the same place we moved the rest. So select and select and select. We're going to move all of which to the back of the text. Very important. Fine. So it's moved there, but you won't notice from here because you know where we're working from. So now we have moved it there. What we need to do is to start arranging them one after the other. Okay, so first And importantly, we need to drag in our strawberry. Okay, strawberry is ready. Drag in our flower, but the flower needs to be at the back of the strawberry to find it is the same place we want it to be. If it is not, you can rearrange it from this angle. Okay, so it's at the back. Now we will need to duplicate this flower, make a smaller version like we did in the last tutorial, and we are going to rotate this way and drop it somewhere here, and just a little, just to make that look a little bit realistic. Fine. Now we are going to drop in our strawberry here, reduce the size of the strawberry a little, and we're going to drop it here. Fine, cool. Okay, so that is perfect with what I have in mind. Now we're going to select all of them, all of which we're going to select, and we're going to group them. Okay, control group, because those are like one family now, so we can move them around separately. So we can group them, so we can rearrange them the way we want. And that is just it for this tutorial. That is just it. Very simple. And these elements, how to create them, you know, I taught you guys how to create elements in the past tutorials. You can also do this with this. All these elements are very easy to create. All you need to understand is what shapes makes all this. All these things you're seeing here that are created are elements on their own. Okay, as you can see, anyone you pulls out, it becomes a separate thing on its own. You see the stuff that causing the shadow here. You see the leaf handle is now just like a circle. You see the stuff making it look like a reflection. You see it's just a circle that is just placed there. Okay, so this is just the beginning. Okay, this is just the beginning for our tutorial. So now we can add our arrow sign, which is very important. Register sign, because this business is registered. Where we're going to add that, drag that in and place it at the top of this S. Select this again, increase the size a little more, and I think that's cool. That's fine. Okay, the one at the back, we can, you see why we group this. You see, you can select this, we can select this, we can select this. Anyone we select now, we can now control it independently. So we can select this and increase the size a little more. I want it to be a little more increased. Fine. And that is so sweet. So this is basically how to create a mascot design. The R sign is not perfect the way you want. It's basically how we created the mascot design. I'm going to show you something else. We go over to here. You see, these elements, as we described before, are stuff that make up the mascot design. Like we also talked about here, the water splash. If you drag out this water splash, you see the effect there is not complete anymore. You drag out this, it doesn't look complete anymore. So all these elements are what matches in to make up your design, to make your design look very realistic. Okay, in the next tutorial, I'm going to give you a little more guide. All these elements are what matches up to make up our work, or to make our work look very interesting. So fine, so this is it, and we are going to see how our logo now looks in. You see, we didn't use much part of our colors here. Why? Because we have created stuffs already, so we just need to drag in the element. But in yours, you'll be using those colors. Mascot design takes about 2, 3, 4, 5 hours, sometimes a day, 2 days, 3 days to create. All you need to do is to start assembling ideas together. And it's not like every other design, like some kind of flat design, like minimalistic design. Mascot design need a lot of shadow, a lot of effects to make it shine. You need a lot of coloring. Like for instance, this leaf element, we can select on it and restyle the coloring to make the top side darker and the bottom side lighter, and let the other one be like that. So if it doesn't make sense, you go back to what we have before. So it is very simple as ABC. So let's try our work and see. Okay, let me recap before we go and try how this looks on a mock-up. Okay, so now as we can see, we have a shadow here. Let me zoom closely. We have a shadow here, and this shadow is what makes this fruit look as though there's a light reflection from this angle shining down on it. That's number one. And we also have a kind of effect At the middle of this element, we have some kind of effect that's making them look as though these bubbles are real, a kind of balloon, a bubble that is inflated and stuff like that. We have some effects here that makes up this element. We have some water effects here that makes up this water, this effect, the darker part, the lighter part, and so on and so forth. All these elements matches together to make up a wonderful work. These are what makes your work shine. So we're going to look at this on a mock-up to see how that looks. So fine. So those details are very important. You see how they look on a mock-up? All the details are very, very neat and very important. All the details are very noted here. As you can see, they are very noted and very important. Okay, so that is it on how we created this mascot design. And with the styling we did here, we can see most of them are working here. Like the strokes we used around this, the background we created, the primary and secondary background. The primary background should be red, the secondary black. Then we start dropping our elements. Elements that are supposed to be at above, and the ones that are supposed to be beneath. The same applies to this primary and secondary elements. For instance, we are going to make a tutorial on this particular one too, if time permits me. So the primary background is this one, which is the darker version of the red, and the next red is this one. How did we create that shadow here? Okay, this shadow here is actually a blurred element. Okay, we just created let me just draw something out. Let's draw a circle, though our time is running out. We have just 5 minutes left. We draw a circle out like this. We click on the effect, we click on blur and Gaussian blur, and that is it. Enable preview, and you can increase or decrease it the way you want. Okay, fine. Okay, so this is how we achieved that edge. Though this one have a pointed, if you can see, you have a pointed edge, but you can also add this up to your design to give it a final touch. Maybe point it at this edge. Fine. So to give it a kind of touch at that edge, but it's not necessary. Just create a line like so and give it that shadow, and you have created the stuff. And as you can see here, we have a shadow at the back of this text. Like the other one, we have a stroke on the text, but this one we have a shadow on the text. So now we select on the text and remove it. We are going to see the shadow at the back. The shadow, we can now rearrange it the way we want. And this shadow have also a stroke on it, which is showing above this element, which is making this element shine. So we are going to come to this. When we come to this, it is going to be very easy for us to learn. If you have not struck the subscribe button, please do so now. Share this video to friends and families if you enjoy it. Once again, my name is Manuel, signing out, and this is how we make the mascot logo in the Cartographics Academy.